Hi Not Board Gamers, and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark, and do I have a treat for you today? You see, today's video is going to be a preview video, and it's previewing a game which hits Kickstarter on the 7th of September. Make sure you check it out in the link below. And what is that game? Well, of course, the game is Solar Sphere, designed by Ayden Lowther and Simon Milburn, and with a solo mode by David Digby. That's right, the guy also did Distilled, and he's done Tinner's Trail and various other solo modes. And I do know as well that the ubiquitous Johnny Pat Cantin is also involved in creating some expansions for this. And what is Solar Sphere? Well, if you remember a couple of years back, there was a small box game came out, and it was award-winning. It won an award at the UK Games Expo, and I reviewed it. And it's a pretty fantastic little 1 to 4 player, 9 card threat management game called Solar Storm. It kind of took the small box game world by a bit of a, excuse the pun, a storm. Well, of course, a game that does that well obviously requires some form of sequel, and that's exactly what Simon Milburn and Ayden Lowther have done with Solar Sphere. What they've done is they've taken the universe of Solar Storm, as whilst not replicating that game, we've created a whole new game based in the same kind of area. And let me tell you, this is a lot of fun to play. So before we discuss exactly what Solar Sphere is, it's important to say that all this here is a preview copy. These are not the final assets, and certainly when we talk about the solo assets, which is this deck of cards, this is very much still in development by David, so he was kind enough to send me across the print and play files for the solo cards. However, what is Solar Sphere? Well, it's set in a future, and what we've done as a civilization is we've discovered the skim drive, and that allows us to go out across the galaxy into far-flung civilizations. And there is now, of course, a power grasp in play as these galactic mega corporations from Earth are trying to become the first kind of GMC, or galactic mega corporation, to become to achieve a Type 2 civilization. And to do that, they need to build a solar sphere. You are going to play the captain of a ship who's going to aid this particular GMC to try and complete their solar sphere by gathering resources, by being in competition with other captains of ships to try and be the most profitable and therefore get the most victory points by completing the most tasks in the best way on the solar sphere, but also by keeping on top of the resistance. You see, there is a resistance, and the resistance is going to try and stop the work happening on the solar sphere. Gameplay takes place over 6 rounds, and after 6 rounds, the person or the player with the most victory points wins, and that's how it plays. It's essentially a kind of a set collection, dice manipulation, resource management game where you're going to build on the sphere. You're going to start kind of collecting crew and assets into your spaceship. You're going to start deploying certain drones to help you achieve tasks, and you're going to fight the resistance as well as collect some resources as well over the course of these 6 rounds. So before we talk about the solo mode and David Digby's rather excellent and streamlined solo AI that he's developed for it, it's probably worthwhile talking about a general overview. Already mentioned, it takes place over 6 rounds, and each of those 6 rounds is going to have 4 phases in there. The first phase is where you're going to refuel your fleet. You see, it's a dice manipulation game, and each player is going to start with 3 dice. There is also a 4th die, which is a bonus die that you may unlock at some point. You're going to roll those die during this particular phase, and then here what you're going to do is you're going to first of all, the total number, or the player that's got the highest number of the quantum of all those die is going to claim first player order in there, but it's also going to dictate how much morale you get as well, and morale is a valuable commodity within the game, and we'll talk about that in a wee while. The next thing is where you deploy ships, and on a turn-by-turn basis, player-by-player basis, you're going to use these die, and these are going to be your ships, and you're going to deploy them either to gather resources, to collect crew, to fight resistance, to go to various places and locations on the map, and you're going to use your drones to potentially manipulate those die values as well. And here we are, there are the drones there. And you're going to gain all the benefits until you've got no more dice left. Then you're going to move into resistance combat. So this is where the resistance has been building up. And these are coming out to fight you in the game. They're trying to stop the solar sphere from being built. But also, the resistance is also the timer for the game. You see there are 6 rounds and there are 2 decks of 6 resistance cards each. So when you've gone through that, that's the end of the game. That acts as the timer. At the end of each round, what you're going to do is you're going to have the resistance combat. We'll talk how that works. And then you're going to unveil more resistance, and then you're going into the cleanup phase where you're going to pull back your dice from the game, get yourself ready for the next round where it will all start again. So what I'll do is I'll take you through very quickly how it works on the board itself, show you some of the options, and then we'll talk about David's rather excellent AI mode for this solo game. So here we have a game set up for a single player game. I have my player board, I have the solo AI over here, which we'll talk about in a bit, and in the middle is the main kind of the sun, the solar, if you like, where we're going to start building upon there. Now, there's always a central blank hex that is there, and then you shuffle the rest of the tiles and place them around this blank hex. You're going to turn one over per player. So here we set up the solo game as a 2-player game and put those face down in the stack you shuffle, and then that builds that sphere up nicely for you there, that planet surface up for you nicely. You're also going to place kind of one of these Enigma drones on each of those blank upturned areas, and that means when you build on there, you have to build next to where there's something in existence already, and you can see there's blank areas there, so that's okay. What I've done is I've just separated the scoring track out from the sphere just so that you can see how that works. You can see around there are various cards placed, and these are location cards, and each one will do something ever so slightly different. So for example, if you look at this location card here, what this means is that I have to put an odd, that symbol means odd, an odd die value on there, an odd die, and that allows me to recruit basically from the crew here, and I'll show you what they do in a bit. However, if I put a satellite cube on here at some point, or a drone on here at some point, that will also allow me, whenever I take this action, to get a resource of my choice. If we have a look at another one, this one will allow me to, I can use any die of any value, and that will allow me to take 2 drones into my ready area. And if I've already got a cube on there, that's an additional drone I can take. We have some resource ones here. So if I place a die that's got either a 3 or a 4 on here, I can get a gold. But if I've also placed a satellite drone on here as well, I will get an additional gold every time I take that action. That's the same for crystals, and it's also the same for stone as well. There we go. This one here this allows me to build on the planet's surface. So as I mentioned, you have to build next to where there's an existing drone already. So I can put any die value on there, and that will allow me to place one of my cubes on the planet itself. However, it's not as straightforward as that. So yeah, that will allow me to place my cubes on there wherever I want to. I'll come onto the tiles on there in a wee while. And then we have this one here, which is the resistance. So I just want to show you this. This means I have to place an even numbered die, and I also have to place a crystal, but this then allows me to place any of my ready satellites on any of the resistance over here, because that's part of the game, you're going to fight the resistance, okay? And if I've got a satellite cube on there already, a drone cube on there, I can recycle up to 2 drones. And what recycling allows me to do is a number of things. First of all, it allows me to pull some of my drones. Maybe I've got drones on these cards here. It allows me to pull them back into my ready. It allows me to move them from my staging area into ready, but also it allows me to move from here into this area here, which is where I can potentially score some additional bonuses. So for example, if I use 3 of my drones on this first line here, I would claim a stone resource, I would claim a victory point, and I would claim 1 morale. And by doing that, there we go, I would then also get to use the bonus die that I could use as well for one turn. However, once you put your drones into that area, that's it, they're locked for the rest of the game, so you're reducing the potential number of drones that you've got. So over here we have our crew, so if I take the recruitment action, I can recruit a crew card, and there's level 1, level 2 and level 3 there. So for example, if I was to recruit this level 1 crew card here, I would have to pay 2 gold and any one resource. It would give me these 2 as sets basically, and there are 3 types of sets and they're for endgame scoring. It would also give me 2 victory points instantly, and this would also then give me 1 morale for every 2 kind of cubes I got on there, so that would increase my morale there as well. But interestingly, you can only have 3 crew cards at any one time under your slots here. If you take another crew card, you then got to retire one of the crew cards that you've got, but that's okay because that can have its own bonus. And if you look over here, in this section here is a retirement bonus. And what that will do is give me 1 victory point for every drone that I've got on the surface of the planet. So crew are particularly important in terms of kind of upping your ability to be able to deliver some victory points and to strengthen your kind of tableau that you're building throughout the game. So I've spoken about the resistance and how they're trying to stop you kind of building on your solar sphere as well. And this also acts as your timer. As I say, there are 2 decks and each of these decks has 6 cards in them. And what happens is you will take an action, or you will take the resistance action, which allows you to then place some of your drones onto these cards. So you choose the card that you want to. So say for example I've taken the resistance action, I've paid my crystal, I have 2 drones, I will put those on there, and there we go. You start off and you put them in the leftmost available column, and what you do at the end of the round is you're then going to roll this kind of resistance die here, which is this die, and you can see that these have got a value at the top here, and that is 2. You roll the die and you add that onto that value, so that's 2 plus 2 up there is 4. That means if there are 4 or more cubes on there, then that particular resistance fighter is defeated. If they're defeated, I get to, and I've got the most cubes on there, so I'd say if I'd got, I don't know, I'd got 4 on there, and the AI had got 2 on there, what would happen here is I would beat that, because I'd beaten it, there's more than 4 on there in total, so there we go. Those cubes are returned to me, those are returned to him, I instantly get 4 bonus points, the AI gets 3 bonus points, and I get to keep that card because it's got a set diagram in the top right corner. And what would happen is if they're not defeated, they then move down 1. You add these Enigma kind of satellites onto them, and then the next one would come along and do that, and that would signify it's round 2. And then if they're even not defeated by the end of that, and you've got no rolls on there, you haven't defeated these, then they get kind of thrown away, they get discarded, but the timer is still ticking through the game. And that's how the timer works. When these 2 decks are depleted, you know that the game is over. So then we come down to the player board itself. Now, as I mentioned, it's dice manipulation, and the dice itself you're going to roll at the beginning of every round. So here we go. I've rolled a 1, a 4, and a 5. And then what you do is, first of all, the quantum of that, whoever's got the highest rolls on there will go first on the first round tracker. But you can see that underneath, if you place them on here, that there are certain morale figures under morale numbers under here, and these numbers here. So for example, I have 1 die with a 1 on there. That will give me 2 morale. So there we go. I can already put that on my 2 morale. Now I've only got my die with 4 on there has got nothing for 1 die with 4, and the same with a die with 5, which has got nothing on there. So that means I get no further morale than 2. However, say for example, these are both being 3s here. So I'd rolled a 3 on both of those. If I've got 2 die with 3 on there, that would give me another 2 morale. And that's how you get your morale, by rolling the die at the beginning of the round. So let's just do that back at the beginning and roll those, and we have 2 and 2 1s. So therefore I've got 4 and 5 morale there. We start off with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now morale is a really valuable commodity as we play the game. So you can see these little spanner icons on there. So what I mentioned, you can knock it back to one of those spanner icons and take a bonus go at the beginning of each turn, and that allows you to either recycle 2 drones, allows you to then or recruit a drone or gain a resource. And the more of those you knock it back to those spanner icons, then the more that you get. However, at the end of the game, you want to be in these blue here for these for your morale, because if you're in the red, you're going to score negative points. Above it, you have your sphere progress tracker, and that will increase throughout the game through various things. For example, if I was to build on this particular hex, you can see it's got a little sun icon there. That means I would move on one up on my sphere progress tracker. And what that means is that if I use say if that's there, and I use my morale, and it's in line with or to the left of where that sphere tracker is, doubles the amount of goes I go, enigma bonuses I get. So say for example I've gone from there to there. Ordinarily that would give me 1 enigma bonus, but because it's equal to or less than where my sphere tracker is, that would then double that amount for me, so I could get 2 resources, I could recycle more, or I could get more drones on there. So that's how that works. Now here we have our kind of resource trackers here. You're allowed to hold 6 particular resources, and the resource types are, we have stone, we have crystal, and we have gold. So there we go. When you get those and you collect those through the game, you're going to put those in your hold, and then the more of those that you collect, obviously you can collect up to 6. If you collect more than 6, then you have to discard 1 from there. Over here, as I mentioned before, is where when you recycle your stuff, you can then put your drones in there and use them completely. And the first time you do that, that means that you can obviously unlock your your bonus die that you get to use, and you get to use that for 1 round only. And as you can see, my red bonus die is ever so slightly different colour. It's not as translucent like the others. So use that for 1 round when you've unlocked each of those columns. And that's how the main player board works. When you accumulate your resources, you're going to store it on there, you're going to try and get as much morale as possible, you're going to try and move stuff across from there, you're going to be constantly adding drones, moving drones down into the staging area, recycling drones to try and make the best choices so that you can gain more resources to maybe make more progress on the planet, or maybe defeat more bad guys. Then the major thing, it's not just a nice centerpiece, is of course the the planet surface itself, the sphere that you're building in the sun. And this is where you have the ability to really start generating some end of game points. So it becomes a really important part of the game for you. And you can see that each tile is unique, and each tile is slightly different in terms of what you get on there. So first of all, you have to have the ability to build on these particular tiles, and by doing that you can see that it says here on this card that any die value, it means that you can build on there, but it's not any die value, because the die value has to match the die value that's on each and every tile. So for example, on this tile here, you have to have a 6 die available, so a die with number 6 on there. You also have to have 2 stone as well. So if I had a 6 die and 2 stone resources, I could claim that tile because it's already next to one there. So by using that card, that would allow me to obviously use the number 6 die to place a drone on there, as long as I could pay its resources. But I don't have that. Now, how could I do that if I don't have a number 6 die? Well, I can use my drones to manipulate the dice that I've got. And when you manipulate the dice, it's use one drone for every pip that you want to manipulate by. So if I had a number 4 die, and I still wanted to do that, I could then spend 2 drones to then manipulate my number 4 die into a number 6, which would allow me to go on there and also put a drone on there as well. And when you put a drone on there, if there are any other drones adjacent to you, then whoever's got those adjacent drones, including yourself, gets 1 morale. So for example, if the AI here had got those, then they've got those there, they would get 2 morale there, or well, the victory points equal to morale. I'll talk about how the AI works in a second. But if it was a separate player, another player, they would get 2 morale. If I had those there, then I would get 2 morale for building in this particular area. And as I say, you definitely get lots of victory points at the end of the game for the more drones that you have on the map itself. Now, Another thing to note is down here are these sets, and you can see there are sets down here. There are 3. Well, there are 2 actually. This one here is your sphere progress. So this allows you, if you place on this tile or you see this symbol anywhere, the middle symbol, that allows you to progress on your sphere progress track. And if you remember on your game board, what that means is that gives you more ability to get increased enigma points from using bonus points, should I say, or bonus actions. And then you have these icons here. So you're going to get points for every 3 sets of each particular icon that you have at the end of the game. They're not just on tiles, they're also on the resistance cards as well. And suddenly you start to see the strategy in defeating certain resistance cards, because you want to build these particular sets of icons so you can score more victory points for having 3 of each at the end of each game. So if I'd got, for example, I built on this tile, as I say, I would have one of these icons and one of these icons, and if I'd also got this particular ship, that would mean I would now have 2 of those icons. If I'd got this ship as well, and defeated that particular ship, that would mean 3, and I would get additional victory points. And of course, that racks up as the game goes on. So you can see there's a real kind of dichotomy in terms of managing your resources to make sure that you've got the right resources to build on the map. And if you build on the map, or you're building in the right place because you want to increase that morale, do you really want to increase it for your competition? Or in the solo game, do you want to increase the victory points for the competition? Do you need more satellites, so you then have to kind of generate more satellites? There's lots of kind of meshing mechanisms going on in the game. So as you can imagine, that creates a really fun experience. Now, when I first got sent the preview copy, I was playing it two-handed for a while until I got the solo rules through. And you get these different strategies. I wasn't necessarily playing to win. I was playing with different strategies just to find out how the game played. And it played very different each and every time. I was going down a heavy crew strategy, or I was going down a heavy kind of build strategy as well, and just measuring them up and marrying them up against each other. And you get this constant shift between, I've got to fight the resistance and I've got to collect some set points, but also I want to get some crew, but I want to build on the planet. But to build on the planet, I need more resources, and I need more resources, I need to get more drones to be able to do that. But my die rolls haven't been good, and you're juggling all of these great things to create this really fantastic, meaty experience. I'm going to say meaty and not crunchy, and I think that's a key thing here. Is it's a very accessible game. I think, in terms of teaching this to people, you could teach it relatively quickly to them, and it's quite in terms of an access point to it and an entry level, it's pretty kind of easy to get into the game. The real beauty comes out of the depths of strategy that you get to play during the game. So that's all great and well and good and fantastic, and I think it creates a fantastic experience. But what about solo? So as I mentioned right at the beginning, David Digby has created the solo mode for the game, and David is obviously behind the solo modes on such games like Dice Hospital and Tinner's Trail and Distilled, which is just utterly fantastic. So David and Ayden were kind enough to send me the PNP files for these solo assets, and all the solo assets are some cards at this stage. You get to use other components from within the game, but only the only separate assets are some cards. So bear in mind, these are just that I printed out. These are not the final solo cards. You can see there are a deck of solo cards here. And what I'll do is just show you ever so quickly what happens in the solo game. Setting up the solo game couldn't be easier. You set up the main part of the board as if you were setting it up for 2 players. But with the solo game, what you're also going to do as well is you're going to disregard a second player board, and this is in reality what you need. These are some spare dice. So you're always going to play the red player in the solo game of Solar Sphere, because the cards are set up to match the black, yellow and blue dice. You have a set of 12 cards. You take some drone cubes of one particular colour, and then 1 die of each black, yellow and blue as your main die, and you're also going to take another one of each as your reserve. Then what you do is we're going to roll our die at the beginning of the round like you would your own die. There we go, we've got a 1, 5 and a 4, and then you turn over the top card. Here we go, and you can see down at the bottom of each of these cards is a kind of colour key. And you're going to present these in that particular order. So there we go. So the first one is blue, then it's black, and then it's yellow. That will become apparent as to what you do there. This is your discard pile. These cards aren't going to get used again, but we are going to use some other cards. So now what's going to happen is that whoever goes first is going to take their turn, and then the AI is going to take their turn. What they're going to do is turn over the top card, and you can see that this is where we look at these particular icons here. Forget this at the bottom, that's just for assessing where your dice go. So you're going to take this first card and you're going to put it in the leftmost one there, and you're going to put the die on it, and that says the blue one there is going to take a resistance action for the A. And for the resistance action, the AI, which is called Dranda. Now Dranda is obviously the publisher. It's the publisher company for Solar Storm and Solar Sphere. But for the AI, Dranda stands for the Delta Rift Area Nexus Defense Automa, which is a brilliant little touch there by David. So what it will do, there are 3 difficulty levels here. You've got easy, normal and hard. So for this resistance action, what the drone would do is it would place 4 of its drones on a particular card in the resistance, therefore giving it the ability to combat that resistance at the end of the game, at the end of the round. Now, the next thing that will happen is, of course, I will then take my turn, or the player will take their turn, and then the AI will take the next card and place it there. And you can see, oh, it's black. It's another resistance action because that's a black die. And you can see that these die numbers, they don't really matter. If, for example, if I was to choose the resistance action myself, I would need to place an even numbered die on there. That doesn't matter for the AI here. So then I would take my action, and then finally what would happen is we would place the third card, and the third die would be a yellow die, which is a sphere action for the AI, for Dranda. And for a sphere action, the AI, or Dranda, would place, first of all, they would place one of their drones on one of the hexes on the board, and they would look for a hex matching the die number of this particular one used. So therefore, it would be the number 5. They would look for a hex with the number 5 on there. And that hex must be adjacent to Dranda's already placed drones. It must be hexes with set icons. Dranda has the least of, so that's, remember those set icons? That's these here. It must be, you're looking for the ones it has the least of. Then if it's still tied at that point, it's the leftmost hex or the topmost hex at that point, and that's how it would do. Then, obviously, that's their go done. What happens at that point is you would then, for the next round, you would take these cards, forget the discard pile, that stays exactly where it is. You shuffle these back into here. There we go, we shuffle those, and we take a card, and we roll our 3 die. Here we go. So we now have 3, a 5 and a 5. And we take that next card, and we can see that it's blue, yellow and black there. So that's how it would then progress onto the next go. And you can see that, if we go, oh, it's going to take a recycle. Dranda reveals the next card from its deck, and it places a 4th die matching the leftmost colour. Oh my god. On the bottom of the card matching the action. So it gets an additional die, and that's where these reserve die come in with the Dranda, with the AI. And you can see it's a really simple system to keep up with as well. There's not that much overhead here. It is literally a deck of 12 cards. So as you can see, the solo gameplay is nice and easy, and it's pretty challenging as well. Now, in the rules that I got, and as I say, they're still in development, David has provided three levels of difficulty, but you can adjust the various facets that the game gives you from a solo perspective to increase or decrease that difficulty as much as you want. And it provides a really nice challenge that doesn't have too much overhead. It doesn't feel like you do on some solo AIs where you're playing kind of multiplayer solitaire a little bit with a solo AI. You feel like you're playing against the game. It's got a bit of intelligence. The deck has been weighted in such a way that it provides you with a nice challenge. And because you have this action of recycling the cards, but some of them are going into the discard pile which you won't use again, you're never really going to truly tell exactly how the solo AI is going to work. And I really, really appreciate the fact that for a game like this, which could have lots of decision trees, David's come up with a fantastic solo that just absolutely works. Overall, I think that Solar Sphere is it's great. It's pretty damn great, to tell you the truth. As I mentioned earlier, it provides a meaty challenge without being overly complex. And I think that's a real kind of thing that's missing in some kind of worker placement, dice manipulations, Euro, whatever kind of action selection, whatever you want to call these games. There are things that are missing, not necessarily entry level. You know, you can move from this, you introduce somebody into this, and then get even crunchier with a game like Gaia Project. It doesn't mean that this game doesn't provide a challenge. I can see this being an absolutely fantastic game for 2 or 3 people to play on a Sunday afternoon for an hour with your family, with your kids, whatever. You can get this out and really kind of, play a nice, thinky game that's not too overtly crunchy at the same time. All of the decisions make sense. Everything works and everything fits thematically. And what I really like about it is it takes what was a relatively simple concept in Solar Storm, and Solar Sphere takes that really to the next level without regurgitating the ideas. I think it's earned its place in the pantheon of the great kind of space-based Euro type games like your Gaia projects, like your Zia to a certain degree as well, in the fact that it provides enough of a challenge each and every time that you play it that you're not going to get bored with this at all. You're going to keep wanting to play. And yeah, the solo may feel a little bit like beat your own score, but it's not, because you have this healthy and hearty AI really working its hardest to go against you, and you can do the varying difficulties on there. So for me, I really enjoyed my time with Solar Sphere. It's not a kind of cookie cutter add-on to Solar Storm. It is a completely different game set in the same world, in the same universe, if you like. You can still feel kind of the input of Solar Storm in Solar Sphere, but it's created its own unique entry into a market which is potentially overflowing with games of this ilk. But I think this is an absolutely cracking addition to the genre, and I think you're going to have a fantastic time if you back Solar Sphere. Kickstarter on the 7th of September, link in the comments below. And certainly for the solo designed by David Digby, as I say, it's still in its kind of formative stages, but it's providing me with a really great experience and a fantastic challenge from a solo AI perspective. So, thank you very much for joining me on this very special preview of Solar Sphere by Simon Milburn and Ayden Lowther by Dranda Games. I say the solo designed by David Digby. Expansions are designed by Johnny Pat Canting. Comes to Kickstarter on the 7th of September, and the solo game is absolutely fantastic as well. It feels like a key kind of, it's not an add-on, it feels like it's interwoven within the very DNA of Solar Sphere. So thank you very much for this. Make sure you go out and check the Kickstarter out. Make sure you go and back it if you want a nice kind of a challenge that's not too crunchy, but still something that provides you with so much fun gameplay. Thank you very much for joining me. My name's Mark. This is Not Board Gaming. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out our other videos. And one final thought. If you can't find anyone else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye-bye.